Navroop Sadev is the founder of the Digital Economist, which convenes enterprises, startups, and innovators to explore, discuss, and share business models. And with me, Navroop, to talk about that, expand about the Digital Economist. Give me some history. When did you start it and why?
Thank you, Jane. Always great to be with you here. Multi-year relationship, I have to say. Yeah, wow, we've come so far. When we first, got together 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, the Digital Economist started as a work group on emerging technologies. We launched the company in Davos in 2020, and we've come really far in 3 years from then on. And now we have a fairly complex structure, almost like a venture studio, if you may, where there's a knowledge platform that's neutral, a think tank based in DC. We convene community, as you said. Last year we published a book on meeting the climate challenge, on sustainability. And now, starting from last year, we've been spinning off these ventures, which are specific industry-focused interventions to not only help the industry from the knowledge pieces that are missing, figuring out Web3, figuring out what AI means for all of us, not just for the digital economy, but also for the traditional economy, if you may. But also, what is it that we can reform? What is that one piece we can pick in an industry and transform it? So I'm really excited. The economy is a bit of a downturn, so it's not the greatest time, but I think we're really well positioned for the remaining part of 2023, next quarter, and 2024. So
what would you say your main goals are with the Digital Economist?
Transforming the global economy.
Into what would you like to see?
A human-centered global economy. I'm so glad you asked that. And that is the mission of the organization, to drive convergence of different technologies towards a human-centered world. And what does that mean? We have 5 pillars defining that, from transparency, decentralization, sustainability, so on and so forth. And at this point, we have specific ventures on each of these pillars, along with all the general thought leadership, as well as convening that we do across the board.
Yeah. So, and I know blockchain is a big part of that. So how does that play into what you're trying to do?
Well, decentralization, right? I mean, I've been in the space for over 8 years now, as you know. And the whole movement and the interest in blockchain technologies, digital assets more broadly, has been because there is a recognition of a twofold nature. First is there's an increasing centralization. There's a confluence and there's a feedback loop between capital and power and governance of resources, if you may. So we're actually, speaking as an economist, at pre-World War I level of inequality. So that's one thing. When you look at globalization, financial globalization, which technologies are being built out, where is the money going, right? And then that money being used in order to create greater centralization of resources. I mean, that's just the truth. So that's one thing. And then the second aspect of it is the socioeconomic consequences of that, right? So I think there's a sentiment we saw in the political landscape over the past 8 years in particular, where, large businesses as well as wealthy individuals are kind of hijacking, if you may, platforms, whether it's media or social media, so what have you, right? And so I think that sentiment has gone into the political realm, and that's actually quite dangerous, right? You look at like the consequences from an even geopolitical security perspective. So all of these things are intertwined, the social, the economic, the political, the financial, and that's what we're trying to address. And I think that was the interest and sort of the momentum in blockchain technologies. And so, of course, decentralization is key, but has that happened? Not really, because I think a lot of the sort of the sentiment and a lot of the motivation was like, oh, we're gonna like transform, the entire financial sector. Well, it's $200 billion of infrastructure you cannot replace over time, not to mention no single actor can do it. So we haven't seen that happen, but I think taking a more strategic, surgical approach is what's needed, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
And that's what you're trying to do. Yeah, it does definitely feel like power has become more central, whether it's government or tech or whatever, and that's what you're trying to get away from. And there's an environment, an ESG aspect to what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. So I think the way I explain this is you have this climate crisis, which is a large overarching existential reality of our world. And you have emerging technologies where there are solutions, digital technologies that help us connect to the whole world. For the first time ever, the world is online and it's connected like no other time in history, right? There's no precedent to this. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, climate is going to destroy everything. And it's not as simple as saying, oh, emerging technologies are going to save everything. In fact, there's a very complex interplay between these. And in fact, a knock-on effect as we think about this on the traditional economy. What does it mean for food security? What does it mean for agriculture, supply chains? We saw huge impact on supply chains and downstream inflation. We're still dealing with that. We're still dealing with high interest rates, right? So all these things are interrelated, and the more interdependence there is actually greater risk in the ecosystem, because a single thing can cascade to every single sector almost in no time, and COVID made that very clear. So it's very important that every business starts with sustainability, starts with the risk portfolio that you're dealing with, and then look at what are the solutions and emerging technologies that can actually help de-risk you, save your P&Ls, and grow them over time, versus putting billions of dollars in infrastructure projects or what have you that are misguided almost. So that's the kind of work that we do for clients and partners.
How can somebody follow what the Digital Economist is doing?
Well, we're everywhere, social media, websites, and what have you, but also at key global moments around the world. Next month, for example, at the UN General Assembly in Climate Week, COP 28 in Dubai this year, and then Davos, of course, is kind of our home base, if you may. So all of these forums, World Bank, we're global partners with them, so we kind of go to their spring and fall meetings as well. So those are the convenings that we do in person. And then, of course, from a digital sort of platform perspective, we're everywhere. So find us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Navru.
Thanks so much for having me, Jane. Always a pleasure.